Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name Elzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all with 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another comic book episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 282, recorded on Sunday, August 30th, 2020. Tonight we're going to be talking about a new movie. It's a Shudder original. This one is called Random Acts of Violence. Before we get into the review, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Phoenix, Arizona, we got our boy, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentle mangs.
Classic.
It's classic. Bringing her back.
Bringing her right on back. How you doing? You melting? Is your face melting clean off your body right now?
Dude, honestly, yeah, kind of. Yesterday I went out on a hiking trail not too far from here, and goddamn if I didn't almost have like a full-on fucking heat stroke after the first like 2.5 miles.
Jeez.
But yeah, it was crazy, but it was also like fucking gorgeous. So what are you gonna do?
Let's go. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it to die.
It was at Thunder Mountain, where they came up with, where Disney was, I guess, supposedly inspired to make Big Thunder Mountain Railroad the ride. So for you Disney dorks out there, that one's for you.
That's a freebie. Enjoy.
That's a freebie. That's just one of them theme park freebies we throw in.
Last but not least, calling in from Southern Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's Shiboy. Have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the best time of the year.
The best time of the Stains.
Golly, have a
Oh man, I really missed the skip to the end bump.
This year. Stains.
That's a long stain. Real long.
How I sorely wish we still had the skip to the end bump available.
Skip to the end.
Yeah, we don't. You gotta sit through it.
Yeah.
So we watched a Christmas movie tonight. It's too soon.
Sneaky Christmas movie. We didn't know.
I would say minimally Christmas,
Yeah.
if that. If it mentions Christmas, it's a sneaky Christmas movie. That's how we operate.
There's a whole Christmas scene, right?
It's a pretty important scene.
It's not a throwaway.
Yeah, but it's not like the aesthetic of the movie is not at all tailored around.
I mean,
that's just a big fail. That's
even the aesthetic in that scene is not very Christmassy. It's more Jalo. Anyway, we'll get there.
I mean, it goes National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Random Acts of Violence. Top 3 Christmas movies for me from here on out.
Yeah, there we go.
No, but before we get into the review, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Over on our Patreon website, just a final reminder, we have our September poll pick posted, the theme of which is black and white horror movies. And if you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this September. The 3 movies are going to be Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Eyes Without a Face, and House on Haunted Hill.
Bob, we have one more day. How are those numbers looking?
One more day. House on Haunted Hill still winning. Eyes Without a Face a little bit behind. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is way on back there, and I'm asking whatever happened to Baby Jane, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh shit!
Whatever happened?
So yeah, you got until the end of August to get your votes in. It's almost September 1st. September 1st is on Tuesday, and of course, on the 1st of every month, we got a brand new poll pick that's going to be dropping. So the 1st of September is going to be our October poll pick, in which we're talking classic horror movies that we somehow just have not reviewed on this show as of yet.
In 6 years.
It's because we hate your favorite movie in this podcast.
That's exactly
That's what we're known for hating your, you,
you,
Jethro, your favorite,
Fuck
your
you,
favorite
Jethro.
movie.
So the three movies that you're going to be able to vote between as of September 1st are going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street, Evil Dead, and Carrie, the originals. All three the originals. So yeah, you got that to look forward to. Enjoy.
All right.
Three bangers.
Place your bets.
Also, on Tuesday, September 1st, we're going to be dropping not one, but two brand new mini casts on our Patreon website. So we've been dropping pretty consistent, like exclusive content on our Patreon website. And if you support us at the $10 level, you have access to all that. We've got over 20 episodes on there now. Justin just recorded a new one. You want to tell him about that, Juice?
Wait, which one did I record most recently? I don't know which one.
The Ju-On series.
Oh, okay, yes. Ju-On. I recorded an episode on Ju-On. It is dropping this Tuesday. It is the Grudge series. 6 episodes on Netflix. It's Ju-On Origins. So yeah. I actually am not too familiar with the movie series as a whole, so I'm not really sure where it fits in there, but I assume at the beginning because it's called Origin. So
one would assume,
and one would assume that's where it takes place. But yes, that's what I recorded most recently.
That's going to be dropping Tuesday on our Patreon website, and I also did a mini cast on a new slasher movie called Open 24 Hours, and that's going to be dropping on Tuesday, September 1st as well. So you got that to look forward to.
Oh my God.
And we are just spoiling these people.
Dude, it is going to be like straight chilling Christmas on September 1st, apparently.
Yeah.
Well,
we got more shit dropping.
More shit. Juice, you were on another show. You want to go ahead and talk about that? It's going to be dropping on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think actually I don't know if it's Tuesday. It might be Thursday, but
I think it's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's I had mentioned it last week. Is it? I had mentioned it last week, but they actually release episodes every 2 weeks, and my weeks were off.
Oh, we're talking about a different show. Sorry.
We are.
Continue.
Oh, one of your other many social engagements.
Holy shit.
This is how many things that we are now doing.
Wow. I've got okay. So, yes, I am sorry.
Not the thing, the other thing.
The other thing.
Yes, the other thing. September 1st, Tuesday, I will have an extra episode dropping as a guest talking about the old Candy Mang. So thank you. Big shouts outs to Nicole. Candy Mang. So Nicole from Chiaroscuro podcast had us all on. I was first. She saved the best for first, and
saved it for first.
And I talked about the OG Candy Mang, the first one, and that is going to be dropping this Tuesday, September 1st. So, also Rob just talked about Candy Mang on another podcast like 2 weeks ago. So, if you want to see who has the best take on Candy Mang, definitely listen to both of us talk about it and weigh in. And let us know.
If you want to hear me talk about the OG...
If you want to hear the best... Sorry, go ahead.
The OG Candy Mang, check out another podcast called Fear and There. That's already up. You can find that if you want to. Go ahead, Randy.
Now, if you want to hear the best take on Candy Mang, the original, you're just going to have to go and listen to me talk about it on the episode we did about it years back. So,
okay.
Very true.
We all have discussed Candy Mang. So, that is coming out on Tuesday. I also did another cast. I mentioned it last week, but they release their episodes every 2 weeks. So I thought it was coming out last week. I was incorrect. Should be dropping, I think, this Thursday based on their schedule. And that is of
Gods and Monsters.
I know. I just said it. Sorry, there's too much.
There's too much.
Of Gods and Monsters.
I love being incontinent.
I talked about The Lodger, which is a 1927 Hitchcock film. So yeah, you can also check that out. Also on Tuesday, it's September 1st, which makes it the first Tuesday of the month. So I also have a top 5 Tuesday dropping. I know.
Wow.
It just so happens to be the first Tuesday of the month. So I have a top 5 Tuesday dropping on Tuesday, and it will be top 5 horror music videos is the subject for this month. So holy shit, we are kicking off the fucking September Halloween season correctly because Bob has like 10 more things he is dying to mention right now.
Also dropping on Tuesday, September 1st, we got a brand new episode of Let's Get Physical Media slamming you in your ear holes. It's going to be our Vestron Spotlight episode. We talk about the first 17 releases from Vestron. And we're
Only
also...
the first 17?
Well, that's all there is. Now.
Okay.
So we talk about all the movies that have been released from Vestron so far, and we announce a movie bundle raffle that we're doing in the month of September. So if you want to join in on that, all you got to do is leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, and you got to do that before September 15th. That's the deadline for it. So anybody between now and September 15th that leaves us a rating and a review on iTunes, you'll be entered into a movie bundle and movie bundle raffle, and it's going to be a sick package. Get to you just in time for Halloween.
Does that include a 1-star review as well?
I mean, I guess technically, yeah, but also we'd really appreciate better than that. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I think that's all the new shit.
I just want to make sure I can still be included.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
You just got to have your finger in every pie.
Stop
you raffling off. You raffling off those laser disc, Bob? The
and Betamaxes. We're gonna send some Betamaxes out. So all the things you can definitely play on your disc player. We got those.
And you being a little stupid?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am, we're not. That's a lot of brand new shit coming at you. I think that's all the housekeeping we have, right? Unless
you know what, we need it. We need it going into spooky season. 2020 sucks asshole. So let's all just celebrate on one big September 1st Tuesday and just gorge ourselves on the horror goodness.
Kicking it off. All kinds of new shit.
Yes, it's coming.
You deserve it, our loyal listeners. You're the best, and we put all this together for you.
That is true. All right, we're getting into the main event now. We're talking about random acts of violence, and we're going to kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Tell us now.
All right. Jay Baruchel wrote and directed and also stars in this movie. If you're familiar with him at all, he's more well known for like his comedic roles, does a lot of work with, Seth Rogen and all those people. But yeah, this is a Shudder original. As of right now, I think you can only watch it on Shudder. I'm sure it'll become more widely available after a while. The plot synopsis is as follows. A pair of comic book writers begin to notice scary similarities between the character they created and horrific real-life events. Gentlemangs, I know you haven't seen this one before because it's new, but would you recommend people check it out? Randy?
I would not really. I don't feel strongly enough about this movie to give it a recommend. We'll get into the reasons for that later, I think. But yeah, it's not one I particularly recommend.
Gotcha. Juice, what about you?
I don't think so.
I think that it has its market, but
yeah. I mean, it's not like the worst thing I've ever seen, but I'm having a hard time like placing it like where it would be an appropriate watch.
Right.
It's not like I would be like never watch this movie, I guess, but it just doesn't fit much anywhere.
So it's like a Chrissy Orlando?
It might be.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's just...
It was pretty good. It was all right. It wasn't great, but it was fine.
Thank you.
I guess if you like... It's like kind of sneaky Christmas. So if... And there's not a whole lot of Christmas horror movies. So if you just feel like you need to throw something new in the rotation there, you can. Or also just for fans of like maybe comic aesthetic, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I disagree with literally every point you just made.
I'm not like selling it. I'm
No,
not
I
trying to
understand.
sell it.
You know, we can get into it, but I think that every point you just said, I wanted to chime in with something counteracting it. But that's just me.
All right. Yeah, I would give this a very slight recommend. Like, if you just already have Shudder and you just want to watch a new horror movie, you know, throw it on. It's not going to be terrible. It's also not going to be something that you're going to like freak out about and fall in love with. I wouldn't imagine. It's fine. It is.
If you have to choose between this movie and a bullet in your brain, go with the movie.
That's right. That's exactly right. I don't know. Yeah, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay. But yeah, we'll drop that spoiler warning and we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right. I do have a synopsis. It's pretty brief. If you'll indulge me, I'll blast through it real quick.
Ooh, indulge.
Oh, yes. Here we go.
Indulge me.
Todd is a comic book writer living in Toronto. His book is titled Random Acts of Violence, and it's based on a series of real murders that took place on a specific stretch of Highway I-90. He's having difficulty... Huh?
I'm sorry. Isn't it called Slasher Man?
No. Yeah, I don't think it... Well, the killer is called Slasher Man. It doesn't matter what it's called, really.
The name of the comic is Slasher Man.
I thought it was too.
Okay.
Yeah, it says so
if
on the very
y'all-
top of the comic.
The book is called Slasher Mang.
Slasher Man.
Anyway, Todd's having difficulty writing the final issue of his book, so for inspiration, Todd, his girlfriend Kathy, his publisher Ezra, and Ezra's assistant Aurora take a road trip down I-90 where the murders took place, stopping along the way and doing radio interviews, book signings, and attending conventions. Along the way, they come across a handful of gruesome murders that are identical to murders that happen in Todd's book. It seems as though the Slasher Mang has been inspired by the book that was inspired by him. Throughout the movie, we get random flashbacks to a little kid and his mom at Christmas. We eventually find out the little kid is Todd, and his mom was murdered by Slasher Mang on Christmas. He draws a picture of his mom's murder, and Slasher Mang likes it so much he decides not to kill Todd. He spares his life. He realizes what he's doing is an art form because this little kid drew a picture of it. The movie then climaxes back at Todd's childhood home, where he eventually kills Slasher Mang and burns the house down. That's what we got.
Sure.
All right.
That was nice and tight, Bob. Keeping it tight for us.
Nice and tight. Yeah, this movie is... It feels to me like it's trying to make a point, but it doesn't know what the point is. It just kind of...
Oh, no, I think it does know the point, but
Okay.
we
It's definitely
don't.
trying. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, Randy, because the only reason I would disagree with that statement, I more tend to lean towards Bob. I think it has just several that it's trying to make, because the only reason I say that is because the characters that are in this movie specifically say it to us looking pretty much at the screen.
Right.
And so like, I know the girlfriend gives like her spiel, and then the killer at the end gives his spiel. And then I think even like the comic book writer guy kind of has his own, like,
Oh, yeah.
so maybe, yeah. So
Here's,
there's at least like
they're
2 or
intertwined,
3
though. And
prominent like points this thing wants to make, but they don't connect or gel very well.
it's a conversation that they're trying to provoke and have, and literally like conversation between characters at a certain point a couple times. You know, it's not, I think they're interrelated, but I also have the benefit of some outside knowledge that I garnered, and I'll get to that shortly. I kind of want to go in and see what you guys say before I contextualize some of this with director's thoughts and so forth.
Gotcha. Yeah, the movie like starts off with some actual text from the final issue of the comic book that Todd's like trying to write. He's sort of fishing for the ending. He doesn't know how to end the book, but the actual like text from the book it says things like, you know, the closer you look at anything, the less you will really see, and truth is the forced perspective that mutates the abstract into reality, and real art is born of truth. Everything else is just masturbation. It's just like very, very like fart sniffy up its own ass, and it's not really saying anything. And I
it's also not true. Many of the things I was like,
yeah,
well, yes,
I dig
nothing begins without an ending. That's not true.
Like his girlfriend is reading this, and she's not really into it, and like he picks up on that, and he's like struggling with it. He's like, I don't know, I'm trying to make the ending like actually have some sort of substance, which I get, but she's not really digging the way he's going about it. So it sort of makes you think like this character is going to learn things and evolve, and maybe write an ending that is different, or realize that like maybe an ending doesn't have to have as much weight as he wants it to have. But then the movie actually ends, and it ends with like the same flowery, like pompous ass text again. So it's like, why are we bookending this movie with this shit that doesn't mean anything? I don't get that.
I think that it's supposed to mean something, but it's so damn like oblique and inscrutable that it means whatever you think it means in the moment if you decide to ascribe it meaning. And I'm like, I'm not putting myself through that much work for the movie I just watched. After having seen it, I don't think that it has enough to say to where I feel like it's valuable to decipher that line of dialogue, or that's several lines of dialogue.
Yeah, I agree with you. The whole searching for truth in art, or like it. There's definitely it's talking about life imitating art, imitating life, imitating art, because it's a whole like thing in this movie, which is neat, I guess. But it's not. I don't get. There's just not a point. They're like, it seems like they're really trying to make one, but they're just not making one.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the general idea of, like, you are inspired by something, and in order, and then like the repaying of the inspiration, I guess, just that kind of idea was like, okay, thing, like you kind of brought my thing to life, and that kind of made me feel important. And now I'm like, it's almost like paying it forward, because now you're kind of in a similar place, and I feel like I can help you, but it's done in the most like stupid fucking
it's
way.
Really executed poorly.
I feel like way too over the top.
I feel like we need to just jump in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and read this thing that Jay Baruchel included with the press kit, and I want to it's just important to contextualize this a little bit. I got this. I stole this wholesale. I'm cribbing from Nightmare Maven's YouTube channel. For those who don't know, she's a horror creator on YouTube. Check her out. She's great.
Shouts out.
Yep. And she was lucky enough to get a screener and some press kits. And this is what the director's statement was that was included with the press kit. It says, "The sad truth is that horror has turned stagnant, a warehouse for outdated ideas and misogyny apologists. A lot of these ills have been here for a while. Some are new trends. Either way, the vast majority of horror flicks features characters nobody cares about in cynically engineered circumstances that fetishize cruelty. This is incorrect morally, as well as antithetical to the very essence of what a horror film is meant to feel like. Above all, a horror film should be scary. It sounds simple enough, and yet when one watches the majority of contemporary horror flicks, so few of them are actually scary. They may be shocking and inspire momentary car crash awe, but the fact is, if an audience member laughs or shares some sort of holy shit moment with the person next to them, they may be excited, but they're not scared. Random acts of violence seeks to cure this." So, Rob, go ahead and bust out your old fart sniffy comparison there.
Yeah, like I kind of respect what he's going for, I guess, but like this movie's not scary at all.
No, I know, and that's like the overwhelming thing that I get from reading that. It's like, this is not scary. This isn't scary at all.
And also, it's kind of confusing, and also like it's not just that it's not scary, but it's like a little confusing, and also it's all like they try to mix in this like comic book style of art, and it's okay, but not really.
No. See, when people praise this movie for the look, and the thing is, if they like took out that comic book shit, like not, I'm not saying, okay, the way like the graphics or whatever, like the 3D, like semi 3D, 3.5D, 2.5D, whatever that they've got going on, it's a little janky for starters, but it does not evoke a comic book in me until they start putting the lettering over it, and then it's like, okay, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't play for me, and it doesn't look good to me. Like aesthetically, doesn't look good. I
Yeah.
do like some of the other scenes in the movie, like some of the cinematography and some of the choices are not, it's not always good, but there are some good examples of like, I like that they go kind of full Yuzna in that Christmas scene, like we talked about earlier. It's very like, you know, bright fluorescent pinks and golds and greens and things like that. And they do that, intersperse that a little bit throughout the course of the movie. But yeah, aesthetics are like the main like solid thing this movie tries to ground itself in. And I don't think that the animated bits do very well for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Man, I get where they're going, and like I've seen that style used before, and like in some ways it like can be cool, but then also in this kind of movie it comes off a little like cheap, because it is like kind of like a cheaper animation style, and the problem is if it was just that, then I could overlook it because it's not that. That's why I said it's like okay, but not really. The problem is it's like if that's what you're trying to kind of hang your hat on, then woof. Like,
yeah, I think that's supposed to be its base to that's like supposed to be the scaffolding on which they build the like they put the point and what they're trying to get at. You know what I mean? And it's just not like neither of those things are playing real well. Either way you slice it, it's just kind of like, this doesn't work very well. And so what this movie is apparently trying to do from Jay Baruchel's point of view is make a scary movie, which to my mind, it doesn't really succeed at any more than, you know, One Missed Call succeeds at it. Or any of those type of movies that he's clearly denigrating. And also to shame a lot of horror movies for failing at this, and also to like, I don't know, to bring horror films to task for their misogyny and shit like that. But I don't know that this movie does that either. The conversation that's being consistently held in this movie is, you know, is it exploitative to take a real life event and turn it into art, or does it deify the person? And by the end of the movie, the murderer that that he is basing his comic book on becomes active again because he stops making the comic book, and he's like, when you were killing people, when you were making this comic, I didn't feel the need to kill, but now you're ending it, and I felt the need to help inspire you for the last scene and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, so it's his fault, or is it like, what are you fucking trying to say here? Is it the a horror consumer's fault that people go around doing this shit? Is it the creator's fault? Is it not? Like, what are you trying to say here? I understand the concept of it being like irresponsible to use real life people's stories in certain ways, and that's all well and good, but it doesn't really harp on that. Instead, it's like a guy whose whole life is centered around this killer, and he tries to make this comic book to sort of cope with it, because we find out he was a victim too. His mom was anyway. And so he makes this comic to cope with it, but keeps that a secret, I guess, and because it never comes up before.
Yeah, or maybe it's just like buried, like he stuffed it away in the back of his mind and never really dealt with it.
Yeah, that would be movie logic, but yeah, I mean they're trying to tackle psychological issues, but if they went that route with it, I would be pissed off, because it's like you can't on one hand say this does psychological damage and then say that repressed memory that therapy is a real thing that you can actually do.
Yeah. You know, I also like it felt like a little inconsistent just in its own logic, not necessarily logic, but like all the other kills that we see or that are mimicked out, it has this very like what's the candy cane movie? What is that?
Joyride. I thought about Joyride a lot.
It's got a very Joyride feel where it's like on the road, and because at first too they have that whole thing. He's got this like weird rape van, and they almost like run into him, and you've got this whole like vibe, and almost every kill we see kind of take place has that on the road vibe. So it's like, why did he go to this house to kill this woman on Christmas when everything else kind of takes place like on the road, it just didn't feel consistent to me. Like it was, and even then, so in order to tie that back in for it to matter, he has to go back to the house at the end. And it's like, this doesn't even feel like the movie that you said it. Cause even the first place they go to that rundown gas station, like it's just got that like on the road feel.
Yeah, it should feel like an abandoned highway.
Motel. Yeah, they stay in an old motel off the side of the road. Like everything about the aesthetic and like the locations that they shoot follows that like theme, and that the location is on the road, and it's so easy to kill people when like you're out in the middle of nowhere and you just stop to help them with the flat tire and you kill them. Like, okay, but then like how does the house and Christmas tie in? Like,
I don't know, man. It's an entirely different aesthetic. I like the lighting aesthetic of it, but it's an entirely different like feeling than the rest of it, because it's a domestic situation with it's the one and only domestic situation you see in the movie that's not like, a meth addict on the side of the road or somebody's pet wrapped up in barbed wire or some shit like that. Like most of this movie feels like you're riding through abandoned Route 66 and dealing with fucking mutants or some shit on the way. And then you have these scenes that feel like they're ripped out of an entirely different movie. And that's like the climax of the movie is that. And I just don't understand why they would make that decision, unless of course you want to chalk it up to the random part of the title.
I think my favorite scene of this movie is whenever they're doing their road trip thing and they pull off, and I guess he ends up having an interview with a radio DJ. And the radio DJ is like asking him about his book and all this stuff. And then he sort of blindsides him. And he's like, there was this little girl and she was murdered and, by this guy whom you seem to like idolize or whatever. And, you've made a whole career out of this guy. And it's like, but he brings it down to reality. And he's like, this little girl is a real person. And like, she just vanished, was brutally murdered. And it's really terrible. And there's like a real conversation to be had there. And they kind of start it, but then it kind of gets lost for the rest of the movie. And I wish that like more instances of that would have happened, because they are intentionally traveling down the stretch of highway where all of these brutal murders happened. Myrtles. So like what they would very much be able to like run into more people that maybe happen to know the victims of this guy, and like, they could have grown. The characters could have learned and grown, and maybe he could have actually written some sort of ending or come to some sort of conclusion for his book. But he just never does. Like that's the whole.
That's the ending of the movie. I mean, I don't blame him for that.
I was going to say, that's a good point. I honestly kind of forgot about that. Like the radio station, the guys like kind of coming out, because that's a whole even another point that this movie's trying to make.
No.
So
They
that
tie
guy's
in,
got
though.
one. The girlfriend's got one. And then the like murderer / like writer of the thing, they all kind of have their own like.
I just realized I'm going to wind up defending this movie.
Give it to me, Randy.
I'm so sorry myself. I don't think that those are separate points. Those are separate points of view on the same quandary, which is, where do you draw the line between art and reality? Like, this guy thinks that making bodies into weird forms is his art, and the only person to get him is another artist who illustrated these things and mass marketed them. And once that guy stopped doing it, it inspired him to make some new inspiration to inspire him with. And the cyclical nature, it's like, how much symbiosis do you want with a killer? At what point does your art stop being art and start being fucking murder? Like, these are interesting. Like Rob said, those are questions. And that's a conversation that we should be having. And the conversation with the radio DJ is the first instance of that conversation that I can recall about, like, whether or not it's exploitative or whatever. And then the next conversation is with his girlfriend, Kathy, who is a true crime representative, basically a stand-in for the true crime genre, who's all about, like, we need to, deify the victims instead of the killers, which is like a more modern strain of like what is going on in the true crime world right now, is like, let's pay attention to the victims rather than deify this douchebag who killed them. And so they have that conflict. And then the final ending is about like is about the bigger thing, like the wider issue of whether or not art is can exist and not affect people in a way that, like, what your responsibility is as an artist. Essentially, that's what it all is. It's all around that central question: is what is your responsibility as an artist, and as somebody creating something and putting it into the world? Do you have any control over it? Should you have any control over it? Should there be death of the author? These are all big issues that are worthy conversations to have, but this movie does it so ineptly because it ties too many things together. The fact that this kid is also a victim is really fucking confusing, because now you don't have just a guy making a story based on John Wayne Gacy. You have one of John Wayne Gacy's surviving victims making a fictionalized account that under some pen name that nobody knows, so that they can, like, I don't know, like, get over it. But at the same time, it looks like they're making that person seem like making John Wayne Gacy seem great. He's like, oh, well, John Wayne Gacy's really cool, apparently, which is not what he's necessarily trying to say, and obviously not if he's a survivor of this fucking murderer. But at the same time, like, well, that's the question, is like, what's your culpability?
That's where it kind of falls apart for me. Like, I wish that he would have, like, taken ownership of like being a victim from the get-go, because, like, it just sort of, like, you know, as far as we're concerned, for the vast majority of the movie, he is not a victim. We don't know about that yet. So he's just this guy who was inspired by these brutal murders that happened, and he needs a story for a book, so he makes it or whatever. And he doesn't know what point he's trying to make. He's trying to figure that out on this road trip.
Yeah.
But then it turns out, like, he's actually just coping with this horrible past that he's had that was inflicted upon him by the slasher man. So, like,
I think that would buy him a lot more goodwill and he's clearly struggling with the backlash.
Totally.
And that's, like, that makes it an entirely different thing. Like, that's not based in reality. I don't know of any people that, I mean, people write books based on their experiences, and maybe they have heightened information about that based on their, like, emotional reactions to those things. But people know that going in when they buy the book. They don't buy, you know, Elizabeth Smart's book thinking that, you know, it's going to come from the perspective, an outside, unbiased, objective stance. So it's coming from a lived experience, and if that's the case, then you have a lot more license. Like,
this movie is definitely saying, like, you know, truth in art is fucking important, right? And this guy's truth is definitely in his art, because he's writing what he knows, he's writing what he's lived. So is this movie just trying to say, like, he gets a pass because he's lived it, and, like, if you haven't lived it, don't fucking write about it, dude? Like, is that the point?
I mean, maybe, and that's, like, I mean, that it doesn't say things explicitly, and it doesn't make a clear line between, you know, it doesn't make its position known. It just makes the question known is the problem I have with it, which, you know, maybe there isn't a clear answer. Maybe that was the intention or whatever. That's fine. But it sounds like they wanted to cure horror. So obviously they think they have the solution. Like, if this is the solution, well, so what is the solution? What am I supposed to be curing?
It is weird that it does take, like, such a negative approach for, like, oh, we're going to be a horror movie. Because then another thing that popped into my mind, talking about inspiration and who, like, you get like your influence from and stuff like that, is because then he does this, like, signing, and the one guy they choose to, like, represent the crowd, which I know it's kind of like a fake out, like, oh, is this guy part of it or whatever, is this, like, weirdo who, like, makes his own, like, diorama of, like, the murder, like, bus or whatever that the guy used, and he's made, like, he opens it up and it's me, he's like, oh, I'm, like, your biggest fan or whatever, and it's just a very, like, satanic panic type of deal, you know?
It's like, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is, like,
you know, like,
this movie is having the conversation that people were trying to push in the 80s, which is, if you consume negative media, you're going to want to make negative media of your own, and maybe even do negative real life consequences type of things, like killing people and drinking horse blood or some shit. Like, I don't know, man. That's a little puritanical for me. I think there's like, especially as a genre film fan, as Jay Baruchel is, and is, like, definitely cop to. Like, he made this movie, for God's sake. He made it to be scary. So, like, are you weighing into that? Like, is it just the act of taking real life events and being inspired by those things? Is that wrong? Is that the point? Because I got news for you, man. You don't have any context. You don't have a story, because nothing exists in a void. So I don't know. And I also want to point this out. This is, again, cribbing from Nightmare Maven. Check her out. She lists several movies that, like, he makes a big deal in interviews about how we're going to tackle this subject. Nobody's ever tackled this before, but that's not true. there's a lot of movies that talk about, art and its influence on the world and how the world influences the art and vice versa. Like, and she lists several. She lists like Behind the Mask, Leslie Vernon. In the Mouth of Madness is about fucking reading a book. Fucking Cabin in the Woods. The end of that movie pissed off a lot of horror fans because they thought it was talking down to them, kind of the way Jay Baruchel definitely is in this movie. It feels like to me. I don't know. Like I like Cabin in the Woods a lot. It's one of my favorites, and I don't think that it's an indictment so much as it is, starting the conversation or making us, maybe trying to break the mold a little bit. And this movie, I guess, is trying to do that, but it really just seems like if you finally do get to the granular nuggets of information that they want you to find, it just seems preachy, especially with Jay Baruchel's voice contextualizing it.
Yeah, I do. We've been bagging on this movie hardcore. I do want to say something that I do like about it real quick is whenever Slasher Man does show up and he starts killing people, it is like very to the point and very blunt and very brutal. And I like how the violence is handled. Like they don't like linger on it too much. It's pretty matter of fact. And
I don't think they show a murder happening.
Oh, they do,
on screen, except for like one or two. Yeah. Which ones?
I know the first one that comes to mind is when he sort of pulls up behind this group of 3 kids. I think they're like probably early 20s. They get a flat tire. They're on the highway. It's late at night, and he like walks up to him. And he's like, "Hey, you want to borrow my phone to call, somebody to come change your tire, or whatever, tow your truck, whatever." And he's got like a welder's mask on and like gloves,
which is the uniform.
Yeah, he's totally covered up. You can't see him, so the kids are obviously like a little bit scared. So they get back in their car real quick, and then you see him sort of pace back and forth and like psych himself up, get himself like worked up, and then he just hauls ass, sprints towards the vehicle, and he stabs the kid in the front seat passenger's seat like 30 or 40 times. Like it's
that's true.
Super, super brutal. I think that's the first kill we actually see on screen, and it's just I don't know.
Other than that, I really just think it's that one woman getting shot, though. And that's fine. That's totally fine. And I understand there's something they don't not show gore. I'm not saying that, but they don't necessarily show like a bullet going through Jay Baruchel's head. They just show his head after. You know what I mean? So it's not that it's not brutal or anything. I think there's a difference, and I think that it was a choice, and I actually think it was a good choice. I don't think it was necessarily bad anyway, because it's like that's what a lot of great horror films do is they imply violence and let your mind fill in the blank. And I think that's the attempt here, and it's not always successful in this case, but the times that it is, I think it is worthy of note, and I think it's pretty good. They don't show you Aurora's head getting chopped off. They show you the comic book describing how it happens, and they show you her brutal disembodied head, and that's enough. I think that works.
Yeah. But then by the end of it, they just like go full out. So it's not necessarily to like shield you I could understand if that was part of like the ethos. Like if that felt more intentional to be like, see, you can like represent it in a more less than realistic way to like numb the effect or something. But then by the end of this movie, they're just like, here's blood and guts all over this house. It just like, it feels arbitrary at that point. Then I guess it's like, okay, so it really just was like, oh, well, for this shot, then we'll switch to the comics, but it's not consistent enough to say like, well, that had a meaning or a point or was like on purpose. Then it just feels like
they kind of go buck wild. They have fucking like in the Christmas room, they have Christmas lights hanging from entrails and shit, and it's like, now we're entering trauma territory of gore. So which you can't have it both ways.
That's
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there's not a ton of gore. We do see one of the tableaus of I forget what it's called. It's like 3 people that he sort of like stitches together and leaves them out on the highway. It's like some sort of terrible triptych of
the
murders.
Triptych.
Yeah. It's pretty gruesome, and I feel like you can't linger on that too much, or else it's just gonna look fake. So they do like a couple glancing passes, and it looks effective.
I think that the look of the thing is good. What I had a huge eye roll moment at this when you first see it though. And it's because the way they reveal it is so fucking like everything in this movie that happens by happenstance is it's got writer's fingerprints all over it. It's like, well, this has to happen. So we're just going to make it happen as the gods of this universe. We're just going to happen to have a wind gust and blow the tarp off this fucking insane, like Texas Chainsaw level art piece made out of human bodies. It's like, it just so happens to happen when they pass by. And that's what clues them into the fact that this is a killer basing things off of their comic book that they're selling and making. And it's just like, how convenient that happened that way. How convenient that anything happened. Like, how convenient that they happen to put up comic books on a rack that the killer, the latent killer, happens to come across 2 seconds later and then decide to re-engage with his killer past. Like, these are very, very... And also that this guy not only is a current victim, but a former victim of this guy. Like, there's a lot of happenstance going on, and that last one's arguable for happenstance because you can argue that it's the central crux. But like, I don't think it's strong enough to stand on its own, especially when you've got these other examples of them just kind of pulling convenient truths out of thin air.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, for positives, I want to go to positives too, because you're right, we are bagging on this. I don't want to, like, I don't have an anti-Baruchel bent or anything like that. I just think that's
quite the opposite.
I just think that this is,
if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I like the guy.
Yeah.
I liked Goon. He directed Goon. I enjoyed that movie. That's probably his biggest one that I know of that he's directed or created himself. But yeah, this is like, the thing I liked about it is that he's clearly pulling from a lot of horror history. Like I said, the lighting in this Christmas scene is very like Brian Usna From Beyond or like Giallo-esque or something like that. It's very, very bright and saturated. But the problem is that it's also trying to hobnob next to the Joyride, Life on the Road aesthetic, and that clashes to me. But it's an attempt, and for like taken just as its own scene, that's an okay scene, of Todd sitting there as a child, drawing out as his mom is getting murdered, because that's how he copes. It's established that's how he and Aurora cope with seeing shit, is they have to draw it, seeing fucked up shit, and that's what leads him to make this comic book and so forth. I'm okay with all that. I think it worked pretty well. I think what else is positive about this movie?
I mean, like, the ending scene is fine, for what it is. Like, he sort of, like you said, he decorates the house in a very gruesome fashion, and we end up getting back there, and they have whatever dialogue they have, and Slasher Man actually asks him, he's like, hey, you're gonna murder me, and then together we are going to then inspire more people to do crazy artistic things,
right?
And Todd's like, fuck your inning, and then murders him anyways, which is a little confusing.
Yeah.
I guess he burns the house down, assuming he's just gonna burn up and no one. He's gonna
ruin the art installation, I guess, that way or whatever. But I agree. Like, I was like, yeah, but you're still murdering him. You're playing into his hand regardless. It's not like somebody's not gonna get a hold of this police report. Oh, man who writes slasher comic book murdered and former victim's house, and turns out to be like this is the most sensational story that fucking 2020's ever seen. You know what I mean? There's no way that's not gonna fulfill what the Slasher Man character is attempting to do. So why are you playing into it? I understand, like, because of rage, like, there's just more than enough that I don't know. It's this movie I think is conflicted in and of itself, and it's the problem.
Yeah. It has that feeling for sure. It doesn't have, I don't know. It definitely feels like it's Jay Baruchel's baby. Like, he had pretty much like full control over it, but it doesn't, like, the end product doesn't look that way. It does feel.
He did have a co-writer.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe they didn't agree on a lot of stuff, or maybe they were just trying to include everybody's ideas, or I don't know what it is. But I
think it was the latter. But yeah,
it feels confused for sure.
The point is confused. The execution is confused. It's trying to be too many things at once, maybe, or I don't know. And also the pacing to me was a little bit off, at least in terms of like camera movement. Like, the camera's always fucking moving in this thing. It never, like, there's never a moment of peace, except for maybe when they go into that creepy old gas station for a minute. Every scene is like bleeds into it suffers from that's the same sort of thing that I hate about the Harry Potter films. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but like, every scene just kind of really bleeds into each other to the point where it seems like the same tone being played for the entire movie. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem
do.
like there's any sort of tonal arc going on.
I do know what you mean. Yeah. I guess there's like one more tableau that he sort of recreates. There's the "Wish You Were Here" kill from the books, where there's this family driving down the road, and he blocks the road, and he sort of makes them get out of the car, and he starts shooting them with the shotgun. And our crew of people are right behind him, and they try and warn the family, but to no avail, and they try to make their escape. They end up running into a tree, and that's how they all get abducted, basically, and then we end up back at the house where the ending of the movie happens. I don't know. That last tableau it just doesn't really like come to fruition, I guess. It's just
really
not
happen. Because he's like, they're onto him at the last. Maybe that's why. It's because they just caught onto it too quickly. Yeah, because here's something I did like is sort of like the mystery, which took a while to take off. But once he started getting calls with, numbers, and he's looking at the Bible, and I'm thinking about dates and things like that. Yeah. Like, then I'm interested, I'm engaged with, and then you have the red herring in the form of some fans, a fan that cuts him that he never even looks at on camera, which I found fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
But like, you never even like goes, what the fuck, man? Like, or anything
true,
like that. Yeah. Like, there's nothing like, he just kind of looks at the blood and deals with it. I don't know. But yeah, so I don't know. I do like the mystery component. I was kept guessing to some degree about like, okay, so wait, what is going on here? And then part of the confusion for me was that the little boy they cast to be young him looks nothing like him to me. Like I understand.
That was confusing for me too, because just like the general like skin tone, because I didn't think that the guy who plays the lead is like much lighter, and like, okay, maybe he's even like mixed, but it didn't come through.
Well, people's skin tones change as they age. I know that better than anyone, because I used to be a gray person. I used to be literally gray. So
that photo scared me a little bit.
I used to look like a Lovecraft creature. It's true, but yeah, no, that's totally true. But it was incongruous, and it was facial features. None of the facial features seemed to align either. You just had a small, like, pretty dark black boy and his darker mom, and then you have a lighter skinned adult, and the only reason that those things finally connected for me is because they did a direct like transposition between the young boy's face and then the adult Todd's face, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is supposed to be him, so he's actually lived this before. Why has this not come up? And then there's just another layer of confusion there, because it's like, okay, well, and it's never directly addressed. We don't know if it's a hidden memory or if it's just like his little secret, because it seems like something that you would want to bring up all the time if you're writing this comic book, and especially if you're implicated in some murders.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm a victim too, so I have no. I certainly don't want this to happen to people.
I also feel like,
and that should even be brought up by the police investigating him.
I know.
Hey, we know that you've suffered a traumatic event in your childhood. It's very likely that you could be a psychotic killer who's like reenacting this guy or anything like that. Like even any line of questioning, and that could have been maybe like a clear like review of that. Reveal of that situation where it's like, oh, you're involved in this, and maybe his girlfriend finds out like you never told me that or something. Like,
it's so interesting that they had enough time to read all of his comics and see the correlation between the killings, but they didn't have time to look into his childhood at all.
Yeah.
And the fact that his mom was murdered when he was a child.
And also, it feels a little weird, too, because they have this whole conversation with this radio host who's like, I was friends with this little girl who was taken. Yeah. But then this kid was also a little boy. Right. And you assume that it's all kind of from the same area. And you're like, oh, I guess you guys didn't like know each other or have no relationship.
And it's a tiny town of 300 population.
Yeah, they would be like the same age. And like, I don't know. It just feels weird that it happened to him as a kid too. And this other guy is like, yeah, I knew this little girl, you son of a bitch. We were like close friends. But it's like, well, I don't know.
Now you're exploiting and now it's this.
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm also a victim. And I understand. Trauma does things to people. So thinking about that in real world terms, I can't blame somebody for wanting to keep like the most traumatic experience of their life secret. Can't blame them for it. But if you're actively mining that experience and putting that trauma on display directly, telling the story of your trauma without actually owning your own position in it, and then people are pressing you on it, I would be like, well, you know what, motherfucker? This is the truth. If I'm getting really pressed and grilled on that, I'm telling the truth and be like, you know what? I've never brought this up because it's not something I want to be defined by, but I'm one of these victims. So you know what? Fuck you. I'm coping myself.
I would also like to...
I'm not friends of a victim. My mom was murdered in front of my eyes, you dick.
I'd like to throw out that the whole... Like, this dude goes on this road trip because he's trying to find inspiration to write an ending. Like, you should have all the inspiration you need because you lived through this horrible shit already. Like, just driving down a highway is going to somehow be better than drawing upon your own life experiences to write the ending of this book. Like, it just feels kind of like
maybe he wanted to see, like, he passes his own old home at one point before we find out anything, and while everything's still calm, and he just kind of like stares at it, and that's it. And we just get a weird indication that it's important in some way.
Also, like 30 years later, nobody bought that house. Really, nobody bought that.
Dude,
house.
Nobody bought it,
and it still has the Christmas wreath.
Well, I guess he put up the Christmas wreath as the implication, maybe.
Okay,
the implication
because of the implication.
I'll let that slide.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I don't want to nitpick so insanely. I like just once you get on a roll, it just kind of starts popping up. But
it's true. I guess there's much bigger problems.
Yeah, there are big problems in this movie, and it's not about whether or not the Christmas decorations were up. So, you know.
Ugh. Also, just the acting, in my opinion, it's not very good. I know it's kind of like we've kind of hinted around it and like said some things, but I want to take some time to say, outside of the main guy, nobody really even does a very decent job, in my opinion. Like, especially the assistant girl.
Well, yeah.
And they just... Well, no, that other dude does okay, I guess, too. So
Baruchel?
the other guy that's in the group,
that's Jay Baruchel.
Yeah, but he does fine because he's like a real actor. But
but he doesn't get a lot. This is the problem. I don't know if they're even necessarily bad actors because they don't get to do anything.
That's true. Yeah,
they don't have anything to do. They have a little bit of development, but no. They get to have a moment like his assistant is like, oh, when I see something terrible, I just have to draw it. And that's Kathy's point where she can reveal to us as an audience that it's also true for Todd, so that later on that can play into our understanding of things. Yeah. So it serves a purpose, but it's as so like, that is the she's only more just a device. She's a device, and it's a shame. I don't know. Even fucking some like just general slasher movies give their characters a little more character than this. At least give them an archetype. And this doesn't really do that for some of the characters. They just kind of are there to reveal one thing and then be murdered. And I mean, that's horror movies, whatever. But I don't know, it doesn't play very well, especially when your whole point is to cure horror movies.
Right. Cure the misogyny out of them.
Yeah. Another cribbing again off Nightmare Maven. Speaking of the misogyny, which comes up multiple times in his directorial thing. There's more to that, by the way, but we don't have to get to all of it. But misogyny comes up multiple times. But none of the women in this movie survive, and very few of them get more than a couple of speaking parts. So, I don't know how much we're curing misogyny that way. Just saying.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Do we really have anything else to say about this before we rate it?
I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Juice, did you have something?
No.
You're teetering on the brink of saying something right now.
I'll just throw it all in my review.
Okay, that's fine. All right, let's go ahead and rate this
Be prepared to be bedazzled.
Out of 5, Randy. Oh, yeah, you're going last. You're going last again. Juice, why don't you kick us off out of 5? How do you feel about random acts of violence?
All right. I will quickly, I feel like, forget about this movie until someone brings it up at some random point, and I'll just vaguely remember it and shake my head and say, like, oh, yeah, I remember I wasted some time on that. This movie is nothing special. It's like barely gets by to me on anything. It's like... everything it does feels like super try hard. There's nothing that it does really well to me. Like there's no shining point to where I'm like, well, at least they like put their effort into that, or at least they pulled this off like really well. It all really feels flat and weak to me. So like I could take an individual like maybe scene and be like, okay, that's like interesting. But in the grand scheme of everything that's surrounding it, then it falls weak again or feels like try hard or like edgelordy or something. Like it just this movie's frustrating. I don't think it's very good, and it's got a lot of negative ticks against it. And I don't even want to bring up necessarily any positives because like I said, they don't really feel like positives when you look at it as a whole. So I don't like this movie very much. I'll give it a 1.5, and that'll be for some of the kills as far as horror goes were interesting. So like the triptych, like when the kind of wind blows up, like I guess the general kind of look of it. And I am kind of glad they were able to show more detail in the comics, because I found myself being curious, like, what does that look like? Because you get a brief glimpse of it, like when the tarp kind of flies up, and then they're able to kind of give you a more lingering look at it in the comics. So like, okay, like I'm glad because my curiosity was like piqued. But however, that could be a negative because that would make me almost want to watch this movie again to be like, what do these things look like? Like I want to like freeze frame or like really get me engaged. So that could just take away maybe ultimately. But so some of those things were like cool, like the triptych and as far as kills go, but otherwise it's just a pretty like wet fart for me. So 1.5 from Shaboy Robert out of 5. How you feeling about this?
Not great. I will say, like, I have like a bit of a sweet spot for Jay Baruchel just in general as a person. He seems like a really like well thought out, like well meaning, intelligent guy, and I like the stuff that he's in. He's funny, whatever. He's also obviously a genre fan. This was definitely like his baby, as writer, director, also star. This is definitely his thing. His fingerprints are all over it. It just doesn't feel as well thought out as I think he believed it was, especially knowing that they spent years and years like developing this, writing it, trying to get it made. And I'm sure it's very difficult to write a solid screenplay and obviously to direct a movie and also like star in it. Like that can't be fucking easy. So, I don't know, man. It just it leaves a bad taste in my mouth that he's sort of like trying to correct the ills of horror movies that he's 100% just like biting off of. This doesn't really do anything new. It really doesn't at all. It just feels a little half-baked, and it's just like presented in a way that it's supposed to correct the ship. I don't know, steer us in a new direction maybe. It's definitely not doing that. It's got some decent kill sequences, and if you just want to throw it on, if you already got Shudder, just throw it on and like kind of halfway pay attention to it. It'll be fine. It's not going to be a total waste of your time, but it's also just fine. I'm going to give it a 1.5 as well. Randy, how you feel out of 5?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on one word that you said, and I think you might come around to my way of thinking. You said this felt half-baked. I would say it feels over-baked.
Okay.
I think that like the last thing that this movie was under-thought out. I think that they thought way too fucking hard or they tried to do too much with this movie. And I think that's the biggest thing that I have to point to. Like they have these big ideas, and that's the central thing that I'm interested in about this movie is that it does have, it has a point. Like we said, it's a confused point. It's a not a well executed point, but it starts a conversation in my mind about, something that we've seen before. It's not unique again, but it is an interesting conversation about what an artist's responsibility is with his art and with the public and so forth. I think that's a worthy conversation to have. I think that's a worthy conversation to have within the horror realm. And I also think it's been done better by other movies. So it doesn't work necessarily entirely to this movie's advantage that it is trying to position itself as the one and only outlet for that conversation. But also, I don't know. I have a list of pros and cons here. My cons include that it's overbaked, like I just said. I think the characters are kind of weakly characterized in general, with the exception of the main guy. Not a whole lot of, and his girlfriend to some extent. Not a whole lot of characters get a lot of play or enough play to really get a feeling for what they're doing. Besides, like, I still don't know what his assistant's going through. At one point, there was like oh, hey, how's it going? Are you good? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, are you really good? And she's like, oh, I'm kind of freaking out. And it's like, okay, well, I thanks for just telling me what's going on. You know, they don't get a lot. They don't get enough to really be their own, to stand on their own, I guess. This movie's pacing or general. It's tough to describe what I'm saying, but it, like I said before, it feels like it's just a constant same tone throughout this movie, the constant same hum, the same wavelength the whole time. There's no variance in that, not enough of it anyway. So it just kind of like becomes white noise on some level. You know what I mean? So there's those. The writing in general is just, I think they're cramming too much goddamn shit into this movie. They're trying to hit too many different aesthetics. They're trying to nod to too many different subgenres of horror, and they're trying to make this point work while having every angle of the point represented in some way and spoken outright in dialogue, but then they don't really land the plane. You know?
Yeah.
So there's that. I didn't like the animation style. I'm sorry. It's just like, it really didn't land for me. It would maybe work in a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
It might, like, if this movie wasn't trying to be like headier, as heady as it is, or as psychological as it is, it might have played well like in a different movie setting, but it just doesn't work for this. And it's, again, another tonal dissonance between the road trip movie that we got or the fucking Giallo movie that we got later on. Like,
Giallo.
Those are not harmonious to me. They're not working together. They're working against each other. The pros, it's got some good visuals here and there, are taken piecemeal. It's got some interesting nods to other horror, again, piecemeal. And it's got a little bit of mystery that I enjoy. And that's enough to give it a 2 for me, 2 out of 5. Everything else, it's not a very good turnout. And I think they could have done with stripping out a lot of stuff that they just didn't need.
All right, that's going to put our aggregate at a 1.7. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Random Acts of Violence.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, so for those new to the podcast, we are going to do the Rotten Tomatoes segment now, which is a situation where I'm going to ask these two gentlemen what they think the aggregate score for critics and users would be for this movie on RottenTomatoes.com. So it's between 0% and 100%. Why don't we start with Bob? We're going to start with the critic score here. There are 63 critic scores on this tomatometer and a critics consensus, so keep that in mind. 0 to 100%, Bob, what are you thinking?
Well, this I don't anticipate the critics would love. I'm gonna go right down the middle. Just call it a 50.
50, okay. Juice, how about you?
I'm going to go lower, 35.
35. Okay, well, Bob, you're going to take this one. You're pretty close. It's 59%. 59.
What?
So not
69 minus 10.
Not certified fresh by any means.
What? Critics 59? Wow.
Here's what the critics' consensus says. Random Acts of Violence falls short as an intelligent analysis of its themes, but viewers looking for a chance instances of brutality won't be let down. I don't think that's entirely unfair.
Yeah.
Here's just a random negative review chosen for the laughs, maybe. I hope. The movie often seems uncertain just how meta to be about its material. Is it a serious slasher movie or a semi-satirical commentary on the genre? Hence, a lot of here doesn't quite work. That's actually just a really good summation.
That's more.
That's just
well put.
Yeah. So
Thanks, John Carpenter.
John Carpenter,
69.
famous Famous Rotten Tomatoes critic John Carpenter.
69.
Around here, that means big money.
Now we're gonna do our audience score.
Everyone knows there's big money in reviewing horror film.
Oh yeah,
For
on
Rotten
Rotten Tomatoes. Are you
Tomatoes.
kidding me? Oof. John Carpenter knows.
69.
Speaking of, the audience score is a paltry 10 user ratings. So they're going to be,
Lord.
it'd be a safe bet to say an interval of 10 here.
Yeah. Okay. That makes it easy.
Yeah. Juice, what do you think?
Bob, let's go. Let's go. You going to sweep the board? I'll give it 40.
40. Okay.
Ooh,
Baby?
shit.
I want the ding-a-ling.
Daddy's going 30 or 50. What's he going to do? Daddy's going 50. Daddy's going 50 on you.
Going 50. Well, ring a ding ding. We got us on the money here, and that's for Mr. Bibby. 50% on the money.
Sweeping the board. These reviews are way too high. I don't understand the love this movie's getting.
I don't know if love, it might be a strong word. You got to bear in mind that a positive review is like 3 out of 5 and up, or like 2, more than 2.5.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, so not a entirely well-reviewed movie. Certainly not by us. But, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Tis what
there you go.
Tis. There you go there. All right. There is no trivia, right, Juice?
No, there was not a lick.
All right. We're going to travel on through, and it's, of course, time to go hunting.
Cooter of the week.
Cooter of the
I haven't even
week.
thought about the cooters of the week for this one.
Oh, Randy, how could you?
Hey, what's a cooter, Juice?
Let me tell you, Randy, so you can think about it first, Goats. Cooter is a straight chillin' exclusive, which is a character type. They have to hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and the 5 points are smug arrogance, sexual deviance. Am I going slow enough for you to think, Randy?
Yeah, keep a little slow would be great.
Manipulation, overall look and attire, and overall pathetic. All right, Randy, I bought you some
too fast.
So, yes. Hey. So who is the cooter of the week, boys? Does anybody have any nominations?
Todd? Todd, maybe?
Todd, interesting. Okay, sure.
Is Todd the main guy?
Yeah.
Todd's the main guy, yeah.
Hashtag Team Todd.
Team Todd. Deadeye Todd. Sorry, I'm thinking of Breaking Bad now.
Oh my God. That's the
Little
cooterest
Breaking.
Todd that ever was.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just by association.
Neither here nor there. So yeah, Todd in this movie definitely seems, I don't know, maybe a little bit pathetic. Like he just doesn't seem like to be able to help himself in almost any way. I guess until the end, like he does eventually kill Slasher Mang, but he just doesn't like.
He's told to. He's like,
he is.
The knife is handed to him.
He's told to,
and his girlfriend is lying dead in front of him. So
yeah, and he just like doesn't. I don't know. He just doesn't like really stick up for himself very well. Like he doesn't.
I agree with that.
Have many original thoughts. Like he just sort of is there, and like all of his friends get murdered, and then he just like kills this guy, which he wants him to do. I don't know. He doesn't.
See, when you inspect the boy's thoughts, it really does kind of look like he's not got anything original going on.
Yeah.
So I would give like his maybe a little smug arrogance to just the opening of this film where she's reading his like this or whatever, and it's just like it's just masturbation, man. Or maybe that's pathetic. I don't know. It's something. Yeah. It's something on the cooter level.
He does say that his fans, like when he tries to really get like a message embedded in his books, like it's lost on his fans, which is like a pretty shitty thing to say.
You just don't get it.
Yeah,
man. It's art.
Yeah. He's kind of pompous.
Randy?
He's a little pompous.
I would say smug is fair and pathetic is fair, but they don't rank incredibly high, either one of them. And I don't see a third one. Like he looks like a normal dude. He's not sexually deviant as far as we can tell. He's doesn't manipulate anyone, I don't think, except that he doesn't tell them about his trauma, which is debatable.
Comics looked a little sticky. Could be a little sexual.
Well, is he manipulating his fans maybe by making them buy this shit that has no point?
Is he banging his comics? What is he doing?
It's just
all right. What about the killer?
A killer, sure.
What
I mean,
about,
entrails is a pretty good sign that you're
wait, Slasher Man. God,
Slasher Man.
God, it's everything about this movie is so uninspired. All right, what about Slasher Man? Slasher Man, he
got the look.
He got a rape van thing going. Yeah. What can we give him? Is that his like attire? Can we give
I would give it to look. I mean, just even with the helmet and all, I would say that look is fine. He also, by the way, sexual deviance counts because on that dude's kitchen table, which we see a few times throughout this movie, there are some massive dildos.
Right. I forgot about the giant dildos.
Like, fucking.
We pointed it out several times, but that doesn't ever come up, does it? Does the giant
I don't think so.
Ever
Maybe
come
just
up?
selects them, you know?
Maybe it's
so
part of the torture. Is there torture involved? He seems pretty efficiently just like, well, bust a cap in this person.
Yeah, we never saw him torture anybody. He's just like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah, he stabs people and he shoots people. I haven't seen him fuck anyone to death.
Giant.
Maybe they're for himself, you know?
Look, man,
maybe
that's not deviant.
Nope.
You can have a big fan. You can be a fan of big giant cocks if you want to be. That's not deviant.
You can sit on whatever you want to sit on, buddy.
You do it, Killer Mang.
Slasher Mang.
I want to posit another character. I don't know if Slasher Man's cutting it for me.
I don't think so. Okay.
Yeah. And this one might not have enough information also, but the gas station attendant, maybe. I don't know. He was pretty smug about being a gas station attendant. He was pretty just not answering anything these people have to say. On the other hand, every one of these people that drive up in the car to the gas station are just assholes about it the whole time they're there, talking about how shitty the thing is. And the guy's just sitting there just like, I mean, I don't know. I wanted to bring him up because I feel like the fact that he was asking if they have meth and shit like that, maybe, but
I don't think we have enough information.
Because I don't think so either. I'm just trying. I'm grasping at straws here because I don't know if there's a true Cooter going.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It might be Cooter free, unless the real Cooter is Christmas
ourselves.
Oh,
yes, the real Cooter is Christmas.
I don't think so, Bob. Don't slander Christmas that way.
This is a war on Christmas, buddy. I'm not going to have it.
A war.
You atheist. War on Christmas.
You godless heathen.
Right. Right. All right.
Colin Santana.
Santana? That one's not going to get old. Sounds like this movie's Cooter free.
Yeah, certified Cooter free. Hey, that's a positive. Hey, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's not. We like Cooters.
No.
We like to hunt them.
We like Cooters. You've really fallen down the rabbit hole, Juice. You need to
hunt them.
Check yourself.
I've got a thirst for.
I breed Cooters so I can hunt them.
God,
that's how Justin talks. That's what he sounds like.
That's a Justin impression, front to back.
All right. We hunted him. We didn't catch him because there's none to catch. However, it is time to let our hair down, and we're talking about what we've been watching this week.
Social hour.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Let me grab some finger Sammys.
Oh, let's do this. Buddy. I want to have a little
rigatoni.
Randy's going for the rigatoni.
I'm getting me some toonie. It's toonie time.
It's toonie time.
I do like the mini quiche. I'm a big fan of those. Those are pretty
man. Costco, baby. That's what it's about.
Also, if you see a charcuterie platter, I'm going to fuck with it, just to let you know.
A what?
Charcuterie?
Speak English, Bob.
Meats and cheeses. Maybe some olives.
Okay.
You know, it's
some
good.
I like Kraft a lot.
Get a little of that gabagool in there.
Little gabagool,
you got any Kraft singles and pepperoni sticks?
Well, what are we doing here?
I don't know. It's social hour. Whatever the fuck we want.
What's happening?
The capa, the cola, the baba, the ghoul.
It is very strange indeed.
It is really, really strange indeed. Randy, what you been watching?
Boy, I actually watched quite a bit. I forgot to mention this last week, but I have been watching Lovecraft Country. Have you guys watched any of it?
Oh, yeah, you did forget to mention that. You've been creaming all over the Slack about it.
I have not been creaming. I don't think that's an accurate assessment at all. I am enjoying it so far. I think that it's not what I expected exactly, because the speed at which things happen in this show is insane. Like, the pacing is that of American Horror Story, but you don't have like 25 characters. You have like 6. It's really crazy how much they packed into just 2 episodes. There's another one premiering tonight, and I don't know, man. I don't want to spoil anything because there's enough in these 2 episodes to spoil a lot. But yeah, there's shit going on in this fucking show that I don't know how they're going to keep this pace up. I don't know where the fuck they could be heading, because like all my like sensors are geared towards slower burns in this when it comes to HBO. It's very strange for an HBO show. But yeah, I am still enjoying it. It's like the acting is good. The visual like appeal of it is really great. Like the colors and everything are really awesome. Yeah. There's some cool themes going on. It's not perfect, I don't think, but I also haven't seen enough of it to really feel like I have a true gauge of it. So I'm going to keep giving it a try. Let's see. I finished Borderlands and I'm doing some DLC now. I think I mentioned that last week.
Ooh, which DLC did you start with? The dragon one already?
Yeah, I did. The Dungeons and Dragons type deal. I'm about done with that too. Is that the best one?
Yeah, but then I also like the seasonal ones too. They're short, they're much shorter. So Halloween's coming up, Randy. Definitely do that Halloween.
You know, I started the Halloween one by accident. I just went to the wrong spot, and I was like, oh shit, I've triggered a whole different thing. I didn't need to, so I had to like back out and figure out which one I wanted to do. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. It's a fun game, and I've sunk a lot of hours into it. You guys were not fucking around. It's a long game if you really want to get the most out of it. And I haven't even played any multiplayer. So yeah, it's fun though. It's good. Let's see. I also I watched The Lodge this week, just yesterday, as a matter of fact.
I heard that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I don't think anybody with brains would disagree with that.
Nobody would ever say that movie sucks a pile of shit. Ever. Nobody would say that.
Damn.
Yeah. Rob is like very much not into this movie, and I was like, I watched it without knowing that or without remembering that, and I was like, have you guys watched this? And Rob's like, yeah, that movie sucks. It sucks. And I'm still confused because I don't know. Well, we might do an episode on it, we might not, but I don't want to spill too much.
We got a regular creep situation.
Yeah, it is. It's very reminiscent
or Suspiria. Bob gets on these kicks where he just will not tolerate a horror film.
Yeah, there's.
I don't like everything. You know, it is what it is.
No, just humanoids from the deep.
Strong, strange stances sometimes. Suspiria's dog shit.
Yeah, like sometimes the level of hate completely outstrips the crimes of the movie.
Yeah.
I stand by Creep being dog shit. Suspiria, I wouldn't call it dog shit. It's just not my thing. But I think Creep.
I mean, that's all well and good. That's all you got to say, though, Bob. You know,
The Lodge. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll talk about.
Let's save that in case we do want to cover it. Yeah. But and then let's see. Oh, I've been watching a YouTuber called Alt Shift X. I recommend that for anybody who wants to like, especially his Game of Thrones sort of deep dive stuff. It's really great for somebody who liked the show. I watched him a lot when the show was going on, because it detailed the differences between the book and the dynamics of the books versus the series. It was very helpful for that. So I recommend him. And he also does a bunch of other, like, you know, Watchmen. He covers all the Watchmen episodes. He did something recently about religion causing disasters. It was a really amazing video. I don't know. It's great. Alt Shift X, good stuff. And then last, I listened to most of, but not the entirety of, a 6-album project by a electronic-ish artist called The Caretaker, named after The Shining. So the first album he released was called, like, oh god, I always forget this, but it's like Selected Stories from the Haunted Ballroom or something like that, and his name's The Caretaker, and it's very clearly cribbing off of The Shining. So that's an instant sort of like, hey, recognize game situation.
I do horror too, guy.
Horror. You want a horror together? No, he has
do it. I do it.
Anyway, but he has a 6-album project, which is simulating descent into Alzheimer's and dementia which is a really heady concept, and it's extremely dark and weird and depressing, and it's not very listenable at a certain point because it stops simulating music and just starts simulating confusion. It's very, very odd. I think it's really cool, though. I think it's a really interesting thing because it starts off like, you're listening to old style music, sort of like ballroom music sort of stuff, old like 30s stuff, and it slowly starts like losing its pentameter and like jumping between songs and like doing all sorts of stuff. And again, this is like 6 hours long. So by the end of it, you've completely foregone anything resembling reality or pentameter or tone or like consistency. It just becomes this really terrifying cacophony of crazy ass sounds. So it's kind of an experience. It's not a slapper. This shit does not slap. But it is really fucking interesting. So I would recommend it if you're in a headspace for like a crazy ass journey. The Caretaker Everywhere at the End of Time is the name of the whole project. Check it out. That's all. Okay. I swear. Whew.
Cool. Juice, what you been watching?
I haven't been watching a whole lot, but I did get into some horror video games recently. I started Dead Space, which is like a horror video game classic these days. It came out in 2008, so it's been a hot minute. So this is no fresh take or whatever, but it's fun so far. It's got a different idea about how to kill like enemies. So usually, you're killing zombies or something, you go for the head. This is in space, and so they're these creatures. They do have heads, but they have a lot of limbs, almost very like spidery-ish kind of, but they still have like human-esque bodies.
We're not hosting an intergalactic cover.
Yeah, you have to like sever their limbs to like kind of completely kill them, or else you never know if they'll kind of keep coming back. So it gives you this really satisfying stomp move. So you can get them on the ground. You can like stomp the shit out of them. I love it. Yeah, you just like stomp the shit out of them. But and it has this like crunching sound too. It's like it's very satisfying. So I have been digging that. I also got to started playing this. It's a weird Resident Evil entry, and I don't think I would like it except for the fact it's Resident Evil Revelations, maybe Revelations 2. I gotta clarify on that. And I typically wouldn't be about it because it's a very strange.
Is that the one with the two women leads?
Well, so they do it with like episodes. And I played through episode 1, and the way that it set it up is, it started off with 2 women leads. One is like a very like kind of dominant character. They get most of the weapon, like they have guns and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the other kind of serves as a support. Mm-hmm. And I guess if you're playing by yourself, it's more of an AI. So I would see where that would get really annoying, where you have to carry this AI around you that's supposed to kind of support you. Mm-hmm. But it's technically, I think, really designed and made for co-op play, which I was doing. And I was playing with someone who likes to watch horror video games, but gets scared playing them. So so being in that support role was like perfectly fine for them, where they were able to collect things, but like I was in charge of the shooting and stuff. But it made like the support character even better because like they were like really interested and engaged and stuff like that. But they don't like to typically be in control because it like gives them too much anxiety, like, oh shit, I can't deal with this. So it actually ended up being pretty fun. And then you start off with the 2 women leads, and then you get to a certain part in the story and it kind of stops. Then it switches over and you pick up 2 different characters, but it takes like a similar kind of role. But like in the second part, the guy was like super dominant. Like he had like an AR, like assault rifle and stuff. So it was able to kind of switch it up, but still keeping like those support roles. You have 2 new characters, but same kind of idea. It was actually, I could see why people would not be into it. And it's very different from any other kind of like Resident Evils, but being in that special kind of situation where I was playing with someone who liked that support role, it was pretty fun playing like together. So I played through that. So Dead Space and Resident Evil Revelations. I think that's pretty much all I've been like participating in lately. I've been watching a ton of horror music videos to get ready for my top 5. I will say this. I really actually do like horror music videos. I find them really interesting because last week we were talking about anthologies and we were talking about shorts, like how hard it is in 15 minutes to capture shorts. So some of these music videos, I absolutely love as horror media. And I find them fascinating because they are so short, but they also have the added benefit of having this like built-in soundtrack that can really affect you in different emotional ways. So like because there's one, like my number 5, it really has to do with what you're seeing on screen, like correlates or like doesn't seem to at first fit with the music that's going on, but they actually pair really well in this like weird situation. So man, what is
it though?
Do you gotta find out? But it's I don't know. I like that medium for horror, and I think there's a lot of good hidden stuff or like stuff that people aren't aware of that like are into horror, but just don't know that there's so many great horror music videos out there, and that it's because you have like 3 minutes at that point, like 3 to 5 minutes to make this little horror short, and some of them are just really impactful that have been stuck in my brain for years, like things that I just like kind of always go back to. So that's that I've also been doing that, checking out horror music videos. So yeah, but that's it.
Solid. I'm looking forward to that list, man. Like
me too.
Yeah. It was fun to put together. One of my
there's so many.
Just combing through, and it was really difficult. I picked ones that, like I said, have kind of stuck in my brain. But there was like I could have easily made like top 10, 15. Like there's so many that I was combing through. It's a lot of good stuff on there.
Sweet.
Wow.
What have you been watching, my guy?
Hey, my guys. I hit up that drive-in. Shouts outs to Sunray Cinema, consistently doing the pop-up drive-ins throughout this pandemic, keeping everybody sane. They were showing Bill and Ted Face the Music. I saw that this past Friday.
Okay.
It's super silly, super, super fun. If you like the first two, I feel like you're going to like this one. It's very much the same thing.
I'm so psyched to watch this movie.
I never really paid attention to the trailer. I had no idea that Samara Weaving was in this movie.
Yeah.
I just had no idea. So that was a pleasant little surprise.
And Kristen Schaal, too.
Right. Also, hilarious. That chick is hilarious.
She is so fucking great.
Yeah, this movie's fun as hell. I had a really good time with it. There's not much to say about it. You know, it's very much the same as the first two.
Station.
Recommend it. Recommend that. Also, I finally...
69 dudes.
69 dudes.
69 dudes.
That's a lot of
what
dudes.
What are those 69 dudes doing?
They're definitely not banging, I'll tell you that.
I don't know.
I finally watched...
because they didn't clean their peen, huh, Bob?
Gotta have the clean
strict
peen.
rules over there.
Before you hit those 69 dudes, you better clean the peen.
You better bleach that thing.
I don't make the rules.
Better bleach it. I watched Idiocracy for the first time. You guys seen
shit,
that?
Really?
Yeah, never seen it before.
Mike Judge.
Isn't that a book as well? Is it based on the book?
Is it? I don't think so.
Not that I know of.
I would be very surprised if it was. Mike Judge doesn't usually parlay in books, as far as I know.
Never mind. My bad.
Yeah, but yeah, Mike Judge did write the screenplay, at least. I know that. And he directed it. It's starring Luke Wilson, Maya Rudolph, Dax Shepard. This is one of those movies I've heard about for years. I just, for some reason, have never seen it. And I love everything that I've seen from Mike Judge. So it makes sense that I dig this too. And I definitely did. It's just one of those movies that a lot of people are referencing nowadays, specifically because they're like, it's all coming true, you know?
Yeah.
Basically, the premise is, you know, only the stupid people are breeding. And, you know, this is set in like...
Harvey Danger called it.
Yeah, like 500 years into the future or some shit where like basically all the smart people have been bred out of society. Luke Wilson is this guy who works in the army present day. They freeze him and Maya Rudolph, and the experiment's supposed to last a year, but something goes wrong. It ends up lasting 500 years. They finally wake up. They're the only two intelligent people left in the world, and they just kind of have to go around society and figure out how to live in this very, very stupid civilization.
The president is an insane pro wrestler who shoots machine guns.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god!
Pretty outside the realm of possibility.
Oh my!
Also played by Terry Crews, which
Terry Crews, yeah.
would be a
Terry
more
Crews is
preferable.
dope. I really like Terry
president.
Crews.
Whoa. We're not allowed to get political here,
You're right.
Bob.
You're right.
Bob,
Come on. People don't come here to hear about how the president sucks and is a piece of shit and nobody likes him and it's shameful. They don't come here for that.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to degrade President Cooter whatsoever, so I'll just continue talking about this movie.
Oh, interesting. European style.
European style. No, this movie's funny as hell. It's on HBO. Check it out if you haven't. What else did I watch? I watched this new movie called Camp Coldbrook. It was put up by Scream Factory. I picked it up on Blu-ray. It's got Chad Michael Murray in it. It's also got Danielle Harris. And it was produced by Joe Dante. So I was like, okay, these names, I like these names. Let's check it out. This movie sucks. The premise of it.
Wow.
The premise of it is it's like a ghost hunting type reality television show. And their ratings are starting to go into the toilet. They find out about this camp called Camp Coldbrook. It's supposed to be super haunted and a bunch of crazy, terrible murders happened there. So they decide to try and shoot an episode of their show at Camp Coldbrook to try and get their ratings up and actually capture some really cool stuff there. So they go there to do it. And just like nothing really happens in this movie. It's just really nothing to speak of at all happens. I would not recommend it. Sorry, Danielle Harris. So sorry.
So sorry.
So sorry.
I bet she appreciates them.
Yeah, totally genuous. Not at all disingenuous.
The last thing I want to mention is another movie put out by Scream Factory a few years ago. It's called Gravy. I picked this one up. It's got Jimmy Simpson in it from Sunny in Philadelphia and
Westworld, Sunny.
Yeah, Westworld as well. It's about him and his girlfriend and his brother, and they are like a trio of cannibals. And every Halloween, they just eat people. They cook them up and they eat them. So they sort of break into this Mexican restaurant on Halloween night. The restaurant's closed. They're sort of like, cleaning up shop for the night. They're about to go home. They break into this restaurant. They seal off all the exits, and they tell the cook that he's basically going to cook his coworkers for them to eat. And that's sort of the premise of the movie. It's got Sarah Silverman in it. Well, very briefly. It's more of a cameo. It's very much a horror comedy. It's got a few pretty gruesome sequences. And Jimmy Simpson is like pretty much the same character as he is in Sunny. He's just like really goofy and weird and... I don't know. It's not like the greatest movie ever, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, actually, for what it is, and I would recommend you check it out. It's pretty easy to find.
Okay.
Put up by Scream
And it's another
Factory.
Halloween flick, huh?
Yeah, it's another Halloween
Did they
movie.
lean into the Halloween aesthetic and stuff?
Yeah, every character is dressed up in costume.
Fuck yeah.
Nice.
The restaurant's all decorated. I mean,
What's that time, boys?
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Yeah, it is.
What's the title again?
Gravy?
Gravy.
Gravy.
Okay.
It's
Check that out.
all
Maybe.
gravy, baby. Yeah. Yeah, it's
my
fun. It's good, dumb fun. Check it out. But yeah, that's all I've been watching. We got one more segment to get into. We're getting into our Hotline Scream. If you are listening, you want to call and leave us a voicemail to be featured on this week's show. You can hit us up at 904-638-3231. I guess we didn't have like a specific prompt last week, but we do have two voicemails. First one we got here is from our good boy 1am Wes. Let's go ahead and hear what Wes has to say.
Our good boy.
Our good little boy. That's weird. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
But that's
I
what
am
Bob always
So
takes
sorry.
it.
God damn.
Oh God, yes, come with me.
Hey guys, it's 1am Wes here, because apparently that's a thing now. I'm here to pledge my allegiance to Bob and our Scream Brothers pact, Soju. I no longer can support someone that talks so much crap on blues and physical media. I'm sorry, but this is goodbye. Bob, Scream Brothers for life.
I think Juice just got dumped live on air.
Dude, let me say, Wes is a young man like myself, so he is very impressionable. And I actually have never gotten a chance to defend myself, so I'll take this opportunity.
Oh, you will.
Where did Bob go wrong? Were he and his friends sifting way too long through those Blu-ray bins? And it gets worse, he'll have no jet ski, wasting all his dough on those DVDs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you were saying?
Thank you, Randy. So, of course, if you remember one of the greatest segments of the show, Bob loves to purchase physical media. And I always give him a hard time about this. But let me say to Wes, who's such a young man like myself, I have watched Randy and Bob become crusty old men. And in that time, I have in their lifetimes, I would say there's been at least 4 to 5 different types of physical media that have pretty much just become obsolete in many cases. Even now, even Bob himself will scoff at DVDs. When we first started the Blu-ray segment, the idea that he was buying DVDs was laughable. So I will say that I am a firm supporter of physical property. Nicole was talking about some sweet books that she got and stuff like that. I think those things hold up much better, but it really does. I don't get the idea of buying large collections of physical media when they seem to go out. They become obsolete so quickly, 4 to 5 years. So it's weird to accumulate a collection of those when they go out so fast. So, I don't mind keeping around 10, 20 of your favorite baby blues, your favorite films you got to throw on when they're not streaming, but I can't get behind the physical media. Physical property, bring it on.
So you were
physical
defining
media? No.
You're defining books as physical property? That's a stretch. That's a stretch.
So people buy the collectible figures, and they buy like the horror figures. Even Wes loves to buy the mask and stuff, and for the aesthetic. I get that, and I get the idea behind physical media, but the idea of the collecting it's it goes obsolete so fast. Even Bob will shit on DVDs, so it's 10 years ago when people were collecting DVDs, Bob would have been thrown to the wolves. But now, buy a DVD. Oh, no.
I, on the other hand, tend to prefer physical matter. I think that's the important thing. And everything else can go fuck itself.
I prefer metaphysical matter myself.
Black matter. Black matter.
For the other physical property people in the room, we have a translation of Justin's rebuttal here.
Okay.
Oh, that's how young
I thought it was going to be the. I was hoping it was going to be the Bigfoot noise.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, this is not a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, Wes. Thanks for sticking up for Shaboy Bob.
Cautionary tale,
thanks for kissing the ring. My God, you don't have to pledge fealty.
Cautionary tale, Wes. Cautionary tale.
Wes, don't move into a guy just because he has a good DVD collection. Okay, all right. You don't have to bend the knee.
69 dudes.
That's so many dudes. I appreciate it, Wes. Hope you're doing good, man. We got one more voicemail. This one's from the old Jim G, baby. Let's see what Jim has to say.
Yo, what's up, gang? It's G, baby. Let's see. I missed a couple prompts from a couple weeks ago. One I wanted to throw out there. I mentioned it on the Slack, but you haven't checked out the Chud soundtrack? Check that shit out. It's all on YouTube. The shit's dope. Super dope. Especially, I think it's track 30. It's called Bash's Theme, which is super dope. But to this week, since there's no prompt, I figured I'd throw one your guys' way. It's kind of been bouncing around my head. What is your favorite, or what's the scariest kind of hidden gem scare like in a movie that really got you. For example, like one of mine is in Scream 3 when Sydney's having like that daydream at her house out in the woods, and it's all dark, and her mom like comes up and she's all dead. That part fucking freaks me out. Gives me the heebie-jeebies. Anywho, yeah, what's your guys' favorite lesser known or like I guess not overt kind of sting or jump scare that really freaks you out in a movie? Yeah. Soju, bring back the screaming and creaming, baby. G-baby out. Keep going.
All right.
Classic.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Randy, do you have a suggestion you want to start with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that come to mind for me. The only question for me is how hidden these gems actually are, because I think that they're pretty well trod territory for horror fans. But nevertheless, the things that jumped out at me immediately were two things, and I mean that was not a pun, and not an intentional pun, but we'll take it. First was in Hill House, The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. That one scene where the sisters are arguing in the car, and then Nell's ghost or whatever pops in from their back seat of the car, screaming. That shit, like I jumped. I don't jump a lot with horror movies these days, but I jumped like at least a foot out of my fucking chair in that one. Oh shit! Because I was really engrossed in the conversation. That was so effective for a jump scare. And it also like furthered the plot, which was like for a jump scare to do that is not always the case, I guess. I don't know. I thought that was fucking great. It was really well executed. And then the other one would be, and this is more subtle, but still well known, is the face of Pazuzu in The Exorcist. Just that face that it just kind of like shows up at a few spots. Just anytime I like that face literally haunted me at night. Like I remember like trying to get that face out of my head at night when I was a kid after seeing it for the first time. I was just like, I can't stop thinking about this fucking crazy ass face. It really freaked me out. So I guess those are two. Again, I don't know how hidden they are, but whatever. Doing the best I can here, damn it.
Solid picks. Juice, do you have any?
I mean, nothing that comes out to my mind as far as like movies, like even that's like a show. Games, of course, get me easy when you're like in it. I mean, even this year, God, playing Alien Isolation, like just, I get the jump scares nonstop, but it's harder for me to pick out movies. It's like, I can't think of a lot of movies that scare me other than like the ghosty ones do. But we've talked about it before where it's more of a physical reaction with the jump scares where you can't really help yourself. And I don't find those like particularly scary. So to mention like, a scary scene that got me.
I can name one for you because I was sitting next to you. I can actually name at least two. One being The Conjuring, the fucking clapping scene.
Yeah.
You know the one.
Yeah.
That scene, you leaped on that one. Yeah. And then also just pretty much the entirety of anything that happens in Paranormal Activity. You were out of your chair.
That is an infamous time where I was sitting next to Randy in the movie theater. And
there were long stretches. Long stretches where you wouldn't look at the screen, but instead are asking me what's happening. I'm like, you paid $13 to sit in this chair, and you're going to ask me, the other person?
Whoa, that was back in the day, Randy. That was probably an $8 ticket.
Oh yeah, it was.
Right. That's
we didn't pay back when you were an embryo, right?
Bob is correct.
That's true.
We paid nothing.
We had free movies for life at the time.
That's true. The ghosty movies too, but again, that's I feel like a lot of that's. And that's not really hidden gem either.
Yeah,
I didn't want to bring up the Conjurings, for sure. But I mean, definitely the ghosty ones are more likely to get me.
Yeah, I agree. The Conjuring 2, I know I've mentioned this before on the cast, but The Conjuring 2 has a specific scene where the little girl's like sitting on the couch, home alone, watching the TV. And this is like in the middle of the movie somewhere. And like she sort of turns around and like looks to the side of the TV. And it's the first time we see the old man ghost, and he screams like, "Get out of my house." It fucking scares me every time. I fucking freak out every time. Also, Dark Water, which is a movie that I recently watched for the first time. It's a Japanese horror movie. It's definitely a ghosty movie about like a haunted apartment. And towards the end of the movie, there's this one sequence in an elevator that I yelled out loud when it happened. Like it's super rare. You know, we've watched so many horror movies. It's super rare to get a reaction like that. But Dark Water got me pretty good. Yeah, those are the ones I had. Good prompt, G-Baby. Thanks for calling in. Good to hear from you, sir. Do you guys have any questions you want to pose for this week?
I think this is a good question, actually. If anybody wants to call in and set our asses straight and tell us what hidden gems we've been missing out on, please do.
Yeah. What made you shit
hidden
your
gem jump
drawers?
scares? Yeah, or left you awake at night.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I also wanted to ask, like, since this movie was based on a comic book, like, you know, are you guys reading any horror comic books right now? Or have you read any in the past that you might suggest? Anything that you would recommend we check out? What do you read?
Man, I haven't read on
What are you reading?
All right. Yeah, because the book club is popping these days.
True.
Yeah. Let's
The
talk
straight chilling.
talk horror comics. You know, what you got?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to do it for us this week at Straight Chilling. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. We're going to be talking about a classic that we have yet to discuss. We're going to be kicking off September right with a Tim Burton movie. We're going to be talking about Tim Burton's Beetlejuice from 1988.
Beetlejuice, Candyman, all that shit.
All the names. Say all the names so many times. So yeah, check out Beetlejuice. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at str8_chilling, at Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the Slack channel conversations, let us know on one of those social media outlets. I'll send you a link to join in on the Slack channel fun. Watch some Beetlejuice. Get ready for next week. And until then, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.